Hey, what's up guys? Matt here with Fix Anything Save Money. Today we're going to be showing you how to replace the carburetor and then do a general tune-up on this Echo PB-200 leaf blower. So we're going to be showing you a whole bunch of stuff on this leaf blower, and then I'm also going to be showing you in a separate video just the kind of walkthrough on this, but I'll go through some of that in this video as well. So you can see here, this is what we're going to need. We have our replacement carburetor and parts. This is from a company called Hypa. They offer small engine parts for leaf blowers, lawnmowers, chainsaws. Small engines, you want to go with this company. They have a bunch of really great stuff at very, very affordable prices. And they kind of have these kits that you could buy. So you can see here, we have our air filter. We have a new spark plug. Here's our carburetor. And then our fuel filter, carburetor, I believe. Oh, and then our little gaskets for our carburetor. So we could set all this stuff off to the side. So this, like I said, their company name is called Hypa, and I'll put a link in the description on where you could buy this tune-up kit on Amazon. So be sure to check the link in the description on where you can pick up this. Also be sure to check the links. I'm going to put links on everything you'll need for this. So this came to me. A customer said that this hasn't been running in a very long time. He doesn't know the last time this started. So we're going to drain the fuel out of it. We're going to put in this 50-to-1 true fuel. So this engine takes a 50-to-1 mixture. So I'll also put a link on where you could pick up this. And then the other stuff we're going to need a 3/4 inch deep socket to remove the spark plug. We're going to be replacing the spark plug. And then we're going to need a Phillips head screwdriver to remove the screws from the air intake or from the air filter housing to get to the carburetor. And then I like to always just have a tiny little flat head to remove the fuel lines to kind of pry them off. So that should be all the tools that we're going to need. Oh, and also what you're going to want to get is just an oil pan so you could kind of set your blower in that. And if you're leaking any fuel when you take your carburetor out, you're not going to get fuel all over your workbench or wherever you're working, if you're working in your yard or whatever. So we'll dive right into this repair and we'll show you guys everything on this. So just so that it's not so cumbersome, we're going to go ahead and remove the hose. So to do that, we're just going to rotate it this way, and then it just kind of wiggles off. Okay. And then this is a 2-piece, so this also rotates this way, and then you could slide that out, and then to lock it back into place, you see that nub and this little groove. You just line those up and twist it in place. So we'll just set that off to the side. So if you could believe it, I spent about 20 minutes cleaning this. It still looks filthy, but it looked a lot worse before. So we'll just turn this around in the pan and we'll show you everything on this. So here's our air filter is behind this housing right here. We have our spark plug with our cap on it. Here's our fuel tank. Like I said, this takes a 50-to-1 fuel mixture. Now, if you don't want to buy the pre-mixed stuff and you want to mix it yourself, the ratio is pretty much 1 gallon of fuel. You would need 2.6 fluid ounces of oil. So if you want to do half a gallon of gas, you would just need 1.3 fluid ounces of oil. And that would give you your 50-to-1 ratio. And then we have our trigger here, just kind of walking through the tool real quick. We have our trigger. This lever right here, we'll let it run continuously. So you can see when you push this, it pulls the trigger in and keeps it pressed in. So if you're blowing out a big area, and you don't want to just hold the trigger in, you could just use that lever and you don't have to touch it. And then here's our auto stop. So if you push, when it's running, if you push this back like this towards the stop, that's going to stop the engine. So we'll keep that pressed up. Now I did try to start this and it is not starting. So you can fiddle around. You could try to change the spark plug and try to start it, see if that's it. You could change the fuel out, see if that's it. You know, swap filters. You could do all that kind of stuff, or you could just buy this all-in-one kit and do it all. It takes you an extra 10 minutes to do it all, and your chances of getting something like this up and running are, you know, you have a lot higher success rate doing that. So since the customer didn't know the last time this ran, we have no way of knowing how old this fuel is in here. So we're just gonna go ahead and dump the fuel out. And you could also see here, it won't even prime. I don't know if you could see right here is the priming bulb on the carburetor, and it's all dry rotted and cracked. So that won't even hold fuel to inject into the carburetor. So we need a new carburetor regardless. So what we're gonna do is just start off by dumping our fuel out. And you just do that manually, just dump it right out. Make sure there's no fuel left in it. And then since this priming bulb is broken, I'm just gonna set this fuel pan off to the side. But you could get another one of these pans, or just empty this into a container and dispose of it properly, or you can, so you could set this back inside of it. But I know that, you know, there's most likely no fuel in this carburetor because this priming bulb is broken. It's all old, so I'm probably not going to leak any fuel out. But if you're changing the carburetor out and, you know, it doesn't look like it's in that bad a shape, just put it back into, you know, put it back down into a container so that you're not leaking fuel all over the place. Okay, so now we will change the carburetor out. And to do that, you just take this wing nut, rotate it counterclockwise, and this little housing is going to come off like that. And then just take note of the way that came off so you can put it back on. And then you can see here, like I thought it would be, this fuel filter is disgusting. So we're just going to throw that right away. And what that's going to do is that's going to give us access to these two screws. And then we're going to be able to take this housing off. And what these screws do, these screws actually go through the carburetor and right onto the blower itself. So just be careful when you're removing them, because most likely the gaskets are already going to be stuck on there. But sometimes you could drop some gaskets and, you know, you might not know where they go back onto. But so what I like to do with this is just take this right out, and then we could just leave this all assembled. So you can see how that looks. You could take these bolts out and take this little bracket out, but you could also just, it's better just to leave it assembled, set it off to the side. That way you'll know. That way you'll know it just goes right back in like that. And that exposes our carburetor. So you can see these two holes right here, that's where our bolts were just into. And then, let me see if I could get some light in here. I want to show you guys, I really want to show you guys this throttle linkage right here, because we're going to take the linkage out, and you could see this just presses out like that. That just comes out like that, and then that's what the throttle linkage looks like. So when we go to reinstall it, we're just going to put it back in just like that. Okay, so our linkage is out. Now you can see this gasket's, you know, stuck on there, melted on there, whatever you want to call it. And then now we're exposing our gas lines. So these are usually on there pretty tight. So again, just take note of which way these are coming on. So you can see here, this one comes up into the top of the carburetor on this angled one. And then this one comes up onto the bottom nozzle for our carburetor. Okay, and we know it goes in just like that. There's our linkage, goes in there. So then what I like to do is just grab your new one, just so you're not kind of messing around with it after you take it off, and just kind of look it over and say, okay, so it's going to go back on. This one's going to go back on just like that. Our linkage is going to go into here, and then our fuel lines are going to go right into there. So this fuel line right here, this one right here is going to go into this one, and this one is going to go into this one. Our linkage is going to hook up onto here, into this hole. And then you see we have a new priming bulb on it. So we could set that just like that. And now this is where this little tiny screwdriver comes in. You could see I didn't get a chance to clean this, but I like to just get any gunk off. And then we could work on prying off these lines. This is honestly the hardest part, is getting these lines off, or breaking the, whatever you want to call it, the suction seal on them. Okay, so there's that one that's off. So we know this one is going to go on to this angled down. And then we could take this. You can see how well that screwdriver works, prying those lines off. And this one is going to go onto this one right here. So this is what it's going to look like when it goes back on. This one, this is going to go on here. This one is going to go onto here. Okay, so now we have our carburetor off. And then the only other thing I want to do while we're in here is you can kind of take this cap, this line, and just kind of get your finger in here and just pull this straight out. And what that's going to do is give you access. This is just an old coat hanger that I snipped and kind of bent over into a hook. And I just want to reach in and grab the fuel line. You might even be able to do it with your finger. Nope. Because you could change the fuel filter while you're doing this. Maybe I need a smaller. You could kind of angle it smaller. There we go. Come on. Okay. So you can see now we have our fuel filter out. And we could do the same thing. We could, this just actually pulled off pretty easy, but we could go ahead and replace that with the new one that Hypa sent us in that kit. So we want to make sure that this is fully seated, and then we're just going to drop this back down. So if you have any questions on this, let me just explain this to you real quick. So this line right here connects down and goes into this line right here. So this is all one line. And then what that does is it hooks up into the carburetor. So here's our new carburetor. It hooks up into the carburetor, and it puts fuel into this bulb. So when we push it, it's going to suck fuel up that, force it into the carburetor, and then any return fuel is going to go down this angled spout into this line right here. And then this tube just literally feeds back down into the tank. It just goes down maybe an inch into the tank, and it just releases any excess fuel. So if you're wondering, kinda that's how it works. So now we can go ahead and, although only one gasket came off this, the kit that Hypa sent has 2 gaskets, and all you have to do is just kind of match up the shape of them on each side, match up the holes, match up the shape of the gasket. You can see right there, that's what we want. So that's our configuration. And then all we're going to do is take our air intake housing and feed it through the entire thing. This is the easiest way I found to do it, so that you get the bolts actually through the gasket and you don't miss anything. Okay, so now that's through, and then we're just going to put it right through our gasket. Okay, so now that's ready to go. That's ready to go back on. So what we can do now is we're just going to hook up our fuel lines. So like I said, this is the overflow. That's going to dump fuel back into the tank. That's going to go onto this angled one. And then here's our actual fuel line. That's going to go onto this straight one, right into the priming bulb. And again, you want to get these snug up against the actual carburetor housing. You want to make sure these lines aren't going to come off. Okay, so now we have our gas lines on. We could install our linkage right here. And that's just going to slide. That's just going to slide into this little hole right here. Okay, so now we have our linkage in. And now we're just going to set our carburetor bolts into our holes right here. There's a hole right here. Point to it with this, a hole right here. And then another hole down in here. And we're just going to slide it in. And we could test you could pull the trigger, test our linkage, make sure it's operating. You could see this lever moving, so we know our linkage is operating. And then we could go ahead and tighten our bolts up. You might just need to hold this housing up against. To get them started. Okay, so now we have our new carburetor installed. We have our linkage hooked up. You can see it's working. Now all we're going to do is we could change out the filter before we put the housing cover back on. Okay, so the filter goes on just like that. And these parts from Hypa are very high quality. Then they fit. I haven't had one that doesn't fit well. So, and you know what you could do? You could even take a little bit of oil and rub it on the filter. I'm not going to do that right now. But that just helps to catch any dirt and any debris. So then we're just going to tighten our housing back down, just hand tight. Okay, so now the last thing we're going to do is just change out our spark plug. So you can see this cap right here. You could either get a big flathead and pry it up from this rubber cap, or you could just kind of give it some muscle and pull it straight up. Okay, and that's going to expose our spark plug. And then all we're going to do is take our 3/4 inch deep socket, and we're just going to rotate this counterclockwise, like so. And after you give it a couple turns, you could usually get it out by hand. Okay. So you could see just how filthy our plug is. So then we're going to take the one that Hypa sent us, And if you guys have any questions on how to gap a spark plug, these do come pre-gapped. You don't have to do anything, just stick it in, just install it and go. But I will be making a video shortly on how to properly gap a spark plug to the manufacturer's specs, so be sure to check that out. Okay, so then we're just going to hand tighten that, put our cap back on. Okay, then we're just going to take our true fuel and we'll just dump that in. You could use a funnel if you want, and this is pre-mixed fuel, and it's 50 to 1. So we're just going to fill that up. Okay. And then we could just kind of fold this in to put it back down in there. And then just tighten our cap. Okay. And now we could also just go ahead and install our hose back on. Okay, so now our hose is back on. We have our new carburetor, new filter, new fuel filter, new spark plug. So we're gonna go outside and see if we can get this thing fired up. Okay guys, so that pretty much sums up everything on this Echo PB-200 leaf blower. We showed you the features of it, kind of how it operated, and then we showed you how to change out the spark plug, the filter, the fuel filter, and the carburetor. So we got it up and running. You saw in that previous little clip there. So the customer should be happy. But yeah guys, if you have any questions at all, be sure to reach out in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And be sure to check the links in the description on where you can pick up all the tools you see in that video, all the parts, the fuel, pretty much everything I'll put a link for. So be sure to check that out. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if this video helped you out. And yeah guys, that pretty much does it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.